Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Paul. I'm a recovery coach here at Cap Recovery. This is our family meeting. This is why is change so hard in recovery? So we're going to be talking about change. Change in general is hard, right? Change is the one constant in life of someone that is in recovery. There has been one thing that I have learned in my nearly 30 years of being in long-term recovery. Change is inevitable. It is the one thing that is constant and that will happen to everyone. So how does change affect an individual who has had an active addiction and is in recovery? The bigger question must be is why is change so hard for someone in recovery? One of the things that I work in is instill in the individual that I have concealed over the years is that they have to want to change. If they are wanting to live a different lifestyle when they go back out into society, when the individual starts their journey to live a life of recovery, they often come to a crossroad in their life. On one side of the road are all the temptations, urges, and cravings that had led them to a path of destruction. On the other side is the road that leads to recovery and is often filled with hard work, determination, and dedication to wanting a better life. And I like how it says it comes into like a crossroad where it's like, do I want to stay where I'm at or do I want to change? And sometimes it feels like it's easier to stay where we're at, even if it's causing destruction, right? Because we're comfortable in the, let's say comfortable in the chaos. And so it's kind of scary, the unfamiliar, the unknown is, it's scary to change. But like in the long run, when we take that step of faith, that we begin to change and we get more comfortable with it. So if we don't, practice some of the things that we're taught, and to change, we're usually not going to change. Goes on and says, change is stressful under any circumstance, but when you are in recovery, you can see more difficult. You can learn to cope with change as you see how important it is to your life. In recovery, coping with change and recovery means dealing with some stumbling blocks that may be in your recovery path, but you can push them out of the way with positive thinking. Some of the stumbling blocks can be what I call the nouns in our lives. It is other words, the people, places, and things that we're often associated with our active lifestyle. There are so many times that I have heard individuals who have relapsed indicate they went right back to what they knew, and that was their addiction. People, places, and things, very important. Them three words right there can change your life, right? And it's hard to get rid of some of that. For me this time, it was a lot easier to change the people, places, and things because it was like I seen my past. I tried these things before and they didn't work. So I had to change everything basically about myself. Um, so it says, when I stopped drinking in 1992, I had thought of moving out west somewhere to start a new life and be able to get away from my addiction. I thought that if I were not around the individuals with who I drank, then I would have been okay. The problem with this thought that was the only thing that would have changed is the brand of beer that I drank. The thing that I learned is simply changing my people, places, and things was never going to be enough, as my addiction was still there inside of me. And if I wanted it bad enough, I would seek it out. If I truly wanted to change, then I would have to start with the hardest thing to change, and that would be me. Very powerful. That was a very powerful uh, sentence that people, places, and things is very important to have to change. That's a must, right? But like if we don't change ourselves, then the things around us is not going to change. So it starts. I like how it says it starts within. It starts with me and ends with me, right? So I have to change my attitudes, my behaviors, my thinking. Um, and that's through, well, for me, I do a 12-step fellowship. called Narcotics Anonymous, and there's like steps and principles we apply. So I have to rearrange everything about myself. From where I came from to where I'm at today, I had to change a lot. And that cutting people, like you said, people, places, things that I cut some family members out, a lot of friends. Uh, I don't go around the block a cop. I don't walk down the streets no more. Um, a lot of things don't associate with a lot of people that use drugs and alcohol. You know what I mean? I don't do what I used to do. So if I used to do what I used to do, then I'm always going to get what I want to get. So I had to change a lot about myself to begin to grow. One of the biggest problems that an individual in recovery will face is that they do not want to get their hands dirty. They want everything to be easy and to be handed to them on a silver platter. Part of this is that the individual was taught that the things should be given to them and that they do not have to go and earn the things they have worked for. Yeah, I wish life could be like that sometimes, right? Be handed stuff. Yeah, right. But like if everything was handed to me, or life was easy, I want to become the person who I am today. So I have to work hard, and I have to work on myself to keep what I have. Um, Now it's just not material things. I have to work on my peace of mind. I have to self care. Um, there's a lot of things to keep my recovery going. It's an ongoing process. So there's things that I have to do on a daily basis that I need to do to keep my recovery. One of the things that an individual in recovery must learn is that there are no shortcuts when it comes to changing from active addiction to being in recovery. There's no magic potion for them to suddenly become free from their active traits. Over the past 30 years, was not some hocus pocus, and then suddenly I held no desire to want to stop using. I like that part. It says it doesn't just stop. Like the desire to use just doesn't stop, right? It's a process, but it does go away. Um, Thank God that I did lose the desire to use, but it takes time. It takes might be different for you, might be different for me, but it does happen. As long as I want it to happen. The thing is that for me is to be able to live a new life in recovery. I was going to have to change everything about what I had been doing during my years of active addiction. So exactly makes recovery so hard. Addiction does not develop overnight. While you may have felt a deep despair to use again after your initial exposure to a substance addiction itself takes time. It's only through the repeated exposure to a drug over time that your brain uh, mutilates itself to accommodate its chemical altered state. Eventually, drug use becomes the path of least resistance, a very real way. Your brain becomes wired from self harm craving, in which is destroying you. The good news is that retraining your brain is possible. The brain is remarkably flexible organ that, when engaged in appropriate ways, it can be reoriented toward healing, but that the process takes time and discipline, disrupting the neural pathways that are formed by facilitate behaviors is not instantaneous. That's a hard word. Rather, it relies on sustained receptive change. You must continuously choose against your addiction, even when your first instinct is to use. You must forego short-term relief for long-term gains, and that requires determination, strength, and commitment. So these are some of the things that you can practice to keep your recovery: determination, strength, and commitment. Um, and that is saying that's what it requires. You know, so for me, for my goal is not just a short term relief; it's the for the long term gains. It's saying drugs and alcohol can be a short term solution for a lifelong process, right? And like and talked about shortcuts, right? We like the instant gratification. We want things now. We want things fast. right? We don't want to appreciate the process of things. We want what we want, and we want it now, which, is addictive thinking, you know. So the process of recovery is might not be nice, it might not be comfortable, it might not what we want, but it's necessary. Most people living with addiction know recovery is hard, and exactly that it keeps them from it. It is important to acknowledge the struggles of those in recovery and create realistic expectations for those considering treatment. The key, however, is to do it anyway. Recovery is hard, but you do it anyway. I always must remember the following. Um, yeah, recovery can be hard. It says most people living with addiction know recovery is hard. Life can be hard, right? But like if we keep using drugs and alcohol, we make matters worse. Um, I guess in my mind at the time was like, let's use more drugs and alcohol, and let's see if there's a different outcome. And usually it's the same result, and sometimes it's a lot worse of the consequences. If I didn't stop using drugs and alcohol, I would be dead. I'm lucky to be here today. But like, change is a must. I have to work on myself on a daily basis until to the day I die. It's a lifelong process, and so many things we have to do is having good coping skills, talking about coping with the change. Um, there's a lot of things in recovery that you have to do, and I think that's what keeps us not wanting to change. People would think even me. I put all these roadblocks in front of me, so I already counted myself out before I even tried. It all lies in here. I was taught here that drugs and alcohol was just a symptom. The problem's me. So the problem's my thinking. I had to work on this to begin to change. And I truly believe my worst enemy is myself. I can do a lot of damage to myself, and a lot of it was self-inflicted. My active addiction. So let's see here where I leave off out here. Most people living with addiction know recovery is hard, and exactly what keeps them from it. Okay, we're about it. On my very worst day in recovery, I still feel a million times better than I ever did when I was drinking. I thought when I put down the beer or whiskey, my life would be over. Thought the same thing. I would be boring and everyone would think I was crazy. I can agree. I thought the same thing with drugs and alcohol. Like, who am I going to be without drugs and alcohol? Who am I going to become? I'm not going to be happy. Not going to have fun. It's like I said earlier. This is already counting me. I'm already putting barriers in front of me before I even try to get better. It's the nature of the beast of like the mindset and the perception I had and the way I perceived life and the way that I perceived myself. And it says one of the worst days in recovery is still feel a million times better than I did when I was active addiction. My worst day in recovery is my best. It's just I wouldn't trade it for the world today. You know what I mean? But when I threw away the last bottle, that is when my life really began. Now I can be the man and the father I always wanted to be. I may not be perfect or anywhere close, but I am doing my best. Some days are still hard, but I know that every time I choose to deal with my life head on, instead of numbing it out with a can or a bottle, the road gets more beautiful. It may not be easy, but it is always worth it. So it brought me back when he said, when he threw away his last bottle, and it takes me back to my last use. My last use, like the drugs and alcohol stopped working for me. There was a time and a place that when I was younger that, it was okay. Well, I thought it was okay, and I thought I was having fun, right? But in the long run, I was really harming myself and the people in society around me, right? I just didn't hurt myself. I hurt the world around me. Anything I touched or anything I go went around, I destroyed, right? It was like a tornado. I destroyed everything in my path. The best way to explain it. And this is a pretty cool article. And I guess some guy wrote this, um, which why it's changed so hard in recovery, man. And I think change in general is hard, not just in recovery, but in life itself. But I think for recovery is because I knew one thing, and that was since a young age, it was drugs and alcohol. That was my solution to everything since I was 11, 12 years old. And that's the only thing I knew was drugs and alcohol and being and destroying a lot of things around me, chaos and just not a good person, right? So the change, and I did that for years and years. I want to say 20 years plus, right? More than half my life. And to change that, like I said earlier, it felt easier to stay in that to actually change. And I always put things in front of me to not wanting to change. Um, it was tough. It was tough. I put all these barriers, I put all these roadblocks in front of me or like I said, I already counted myself out before I even try to change. You know, and there's the last part here. It says, you can change and live a life that is not associated with addiction. The question is, do you want to change bad enough to make change in your life? So, do you want it bad enough? That's one of the questions I had to ask myself too. You know, do I want this? Um, and years on end, like I didn't, right? Maybe sometimes I did, I just didn't know a way out, right? Because I wanted the pain to stop, right? And I didn't know how to go about that. Um, and I had to be willing to listen. I had to be honest. I had to be open. I had to like change a lot to actually get better. It takes time. It takes work. It takes dedication. It takes commitment. It takes strength. Um, just like what this article talked about, man. It takes a lot of work, but it's worth it in the long run. Um, so it's taking recovery one day at a time. And that's all we have. One day at a time because it could be here today, gone tomorrow. You never know what tomorrow's going to bring. Right? The past is the past. You can't change it. You can always look back on it, right? The future, you never know what's going to come, but you can set goals for yourself, right? But like most importantly is enjoying the moment, enjoying the day, and hopefully you wake up tomorrow. You know, just be grateful you wake up and have another day. And it talks about the desire. I can't tell you when the desire was lifted from me, but it has. I don't say I don't ever think about it or have thoughts about it, right? But like it's not an urge, it's not a desire, which I'm truly grateful for. I never thought that would happen of me losing the desire to use drugs and alcohol. I didn't think that was possible for me, you know. But when I started applying some things, changes start to happen, even uncomfortable changes, good changes, bad changes. Life shows up, things happen. But I have coping skills today. I have, tools in my toolbox. I can deal with my problems and issues in a healthy way instead of just going straight to drugs and alcohol. I have other pathways of recovery, which is I'm truly grateful for. But that was the end of the article. I appreciate Bailey. Nice seeing you. Thank you for showing up. Until next time, I will see you.